Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the CCSN podcast. I'm Chris here with Chase. Chase, how you doing today?
Doing fantastic. How are you?
No, I'm doing as good as you can on a Monday morning. Well, we had a lot of good games yesterday. We had some bad games yesterday. Tell me what you liked. Tell me what you didn't like. Tell me what you saw. Tell me what you wish you saw.
I think we got to start with the Eagles. I mean, I understand this is a Philly fan podcast, but the Eagles, they look absolutely phenomenal. Probably the best team in the NFC through 3 weeks so far. I understand 3 easy games. Don't want to overreact. Still have had a tough time scoring in the second half. They haven't had to. Jalen Hurts has looked absolutely incredible. Both their wide receivers, actually, all three of their wide receivers, look absolutely phenomenal. Three Batmans: skinny Batman, fast Batman, swole Batman. They showed up against the Commanders, excuse me, and yeah, I mean, I'm really liking what I see from the Eagles right now. I was not expecting this kind of a jump from Jalen Hurts this early. He looks like Russell Wilson out there.
Yeah, he looks fantastic right now. And the number one thing that comes to mind with him is confidence. Like that's all it is right now. I mean, you're looking at him. He knows where he's going with the ball, and his first read's not there. He knows, well, I got to check somewhere else. Another big name that's been not finally showing up, but showing his potential to me, Dallas Goddard. I mean, that great 25-yard play touchdown yesterday. I mean,
He said,
everything's just
"Excuse me," with that. That was the
exactly.
nastiest move I've ever seen in my life. It was just like so subtle. It was beautiful.
The offense just looks so in sync. Everyone looks like they're having fun out there, and everyone looks like they're enjoying themselves. I mean, and that's a big thing with a football team. Yes, you can have so much talent, but you need to all like to play together to win. So I mean, that's just looking big. And as you said, it's been 3 easy games, but this is what you're supposed to do against these teams. You're supposed to dominate the whole game. And if I'm wrong, correct me, but they have not been down a single game so far.
Not to my knowledge, no. I don't
So
think
I
so.
mean, that's pretty damn impressive to start the year and having, in my eyes, right now, top two MVP candidate on your team does not hurt that case either. So I'm really excited as an Eagles fan, but just as an NFL fan and a Jalen Hurts fan, man. I've been rooting for him since college.
Yeah, he got a really bad rap. He just is like people were saying he could never improve, which I mean, all we've seen from Jalen Hurts is improved. They were like, yeah, this kind of stuff is never going to develop and it's never going to come. And look, personally, I didn't expect it to happen this soon, but the fact that it is happening, I mean, I don't think it's like a shock. This is a guy that's since like his freshman year of college, all he's done is get better. He came in as a pure running back, finished his college career at Oklahoma. Was it 52 touchdowns, 8 interceptions as a senior? This dude is unbelievable. He's been unbelievable his entire career. It's just been the thought process that it can't translate to the NFL. And we're seeing right now that it's translating and some because I don't know with the way Jalen Hurts is playing right now, how high is this guy's ceiling? Is it a Lamar Jackson type player?
I absolutely think so. I mean, speaking of Lamar Jackson yesterday, that dude had a fantastic game. But I'm going to make my one point on the Eagles, and I'm ready to move on. Devontae Smith yesterday, 170 yards and a touchdown. And the dude is just a magician when it comes to going and getting the ball. I mean, he had that first play, I guess he wasn't inbounds, but they counted it. So to me, he was inbounds. So, I mean, the dude had his breakout game. I think this was his breakout game, and I'm here to see it. I mean, fine. Everyone, again, this is another guy coming out of college. Everyone was, oh, how's his game going to translate to the NFL? He's too small. He's too skinny, blah, blah, blah. You heard everything. And he came out yesterday and showed this is why I was the best college wide receiver.
This is one of like one. I don't remember the last time a skill player has won the Heisman except for Devontae Smith. Like this is a wide receiver that just won the Heisman. He is that guy. If there is anybody that is him, it's Devontae Smith. Like he has always been that guy. And the question really, I mean, he had a phenomenal rookie season. The stats were nothing like Jamar Chase because he didn't have a quarterback that could get him the ball and had that kind of chemistry with him. If Jalen Hurts can be that kind of a guy, I think we're going to see some insane numbers from Devontae Smith because originally when he came out, I started Jeremy Maclin was my comparison for him because he was going into a very similar situation where Jeremy Maclin was a former first-round pick, incredibly talented, very polished with the route running, such a smooth player, a lot like Devontae Smith, never put up the big numbers because he never had that opportunity to be with a great quarterback. And I saw that kind of happening for Devontae Smith, but now after 3 games this season, I'm starting to change my mind. I think we're going to see some crazy Devontae Smith years.
Yeah, and the thing with this Eagles offense, I totally agree with you, by the way, about Devontae Smith. But the one thing I really love about this offense is that everyone is touching the ball. I mean, you have your big three touching the ball in Devontae Smith, AJ Brown, Dallas Goedert, but you also have guys like Zach Pascal going and getting the ball. Miles Sanders didn't look that great yesterday, but they're still rushing the ball pretty efficiently. And Jalen Hurts had over 300 yards yesterday on offense. He had I think he had 20 yards rushing the ball. So everyone who's trying to say, Jalen Hurts can only rush the ball, Jalen Hurts can't pass the ball, I don't know how much more you need from him, but no one watched the game tape from yesterday.
Yeah, and I mean, yesterday's tape was incredible, but the tape that really stands out to me is the Minnesota tape. That game was absolutely the best I've ever seen from Jalen Hurts. The one deep ball to Quez Watkins, I mean, that was thrown on an absolute rope. That was Josh Allen to a T. I mean, Jalen Hurts, I can't say enough good things about the guy. I think we're about ready to move on to a fairly similar quarterback to Jalen Hurts as far as the way people talked about them coming into the season, not as far as talent wise, in my opinion. Tua Tagovailoa and the Miami Dolphins. This is a game we called on this podcast. Both of us said the Dolphins are going to go in and win this game. And we're both very high on the Bills, but this was just such a perfect game for the Dolphins to win. Every single one of their position groups showed out, which was extremely important. Like, their defense showed up a lot more than I really expected. I kind of expected a shootout. But the way the Bills play their defense, they were susceptible to a loss to the Dolphins today, especially without Micah Hyde, and it happened. I didn't think Tua played all that incredible. Nothing to really move me, but he showed a lot of heart coming back from that insane concussion-like injury, which they're saying is a back injury. We're going to have to keep an eye on that because they're getting investigated for that. But, I mean, that was a game we called it on here. The Dolphins, they're shocking a lot of people, myself included. And what do you think about Tua from yesterday specifically?
Tua had a Tua-like game. He threw 13 for 18. He had 186 yards, but he definitely did show improvements. I mean, that one deep ball pass on 3rd and 21, Jalen Waddle, tight coverage. That was a great pass. I mean, he
It's the
finally
best throw
had.
I've ever seen Tua make.
Yeah, it was a great throw. He had great protection. But again, my number one thing with the Dolphins coming into this season and, staying with it, it's all about the scheme with this team. I mean, everyone's touching the ball. Tyreek Hill had 23 yards yesterday, and they won the game. He had 2 receptions. He was basically knocked out of the game the whole time. Jalen Waddle, on the other hand, had 135 yards. The man's insane still. But I just really like the way they move the ball. I like the different directions they can move the ball. And with the defense, I mean, Melvin Ingram yesterday, this has been one of the most underrated pickups of the whole offseason. He had 2 sacks. He just looks fantastic. Josh Allen threw for had over 400 yards on offense and still lost the game, though, which, that sucks. But one thing I've noticed with Josh Allen, and even on that last drive, the one before the butt punt, he gets a little hesitant with the ball sometimes, and in certain game situations. I forget who it was exactly, but on the out route on that last play of the game, not the last play of the game, the last play of that drive on the 4th down, he hesitated and he had him and he missed him eventually.
Yeah,
and
Kenzie.
You can't do that if you're supposed to win MVP. You're supposed to be the best quarterback in the league. Yes, I mean, he had a great game, but you're supposed to show up in these moments. And that's just one little thing I noticed. Again, Josh Allen had a great game, but if you're going to be a top guy, top dog, you can't be hesitant in those type of moments.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, I really feel like he just should have stepped into that throw. It came out weird out of his hand. He had McKenzie wide open. Any other time, I feel like Josh Allen's hitting that throw 99 times out of 100. Just on that play, for whatever reason, he threw it short. Like, it went right into the dirt. I've never seen Josh Allen, or I haven't seen Josh Allen do that in a long time. So I'm not worried about it. But if I were a Dolphins fan, I'd be extremely excited to come away with that win. That's a huge win to come out with. When there were some people talking about the Bills going 17-0 coming out after, what was it, Thursday night against the or was it Monday night against the Titans?
That was Monday night. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the Bills. I'm not too worried about them. They're gonna have to find some secondary help because they had Dane Jackson starting out there at corner, coming off that horrible injury. And then you just lost Micah Hyde for the season, and their secondary is kind of depleted right now, which is something they rely very much on with their defenses. They're too high look, but there are safeties out there that they can go get. I think Anthony Harris is still available. There are still some guys that are available to go out and snag off the open market. So not too worried about the Bills. as a Dolphins fan, I'd be extremely excited.
Fins up, baby. It's looking great for Miami right now. I've been on that Mike McDaniel train for a very long time.
Gotta admit, I was wrong on Mike McDaniel.
My one last guy who just had a fantastic game yesterday for Miami was Javon Holland. I mean, the dude showed up. He had, I think it was 1.5 sacks. He stripped the ball out of Josh Allen's hand. What else could you ask from your second-year starting safety? But another game,
played good defense on the backside too. Very good secondary help.
He did everything yesterday. But one other game, the Panthers versus the Saints yesterday. This was one game that I got wrong on my predictions. I thought the Saints were going to go in here, and I thought they were going to play great. I thought the defense was going to lock down Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield still did not have a good game. I mean, what did he do yesterday? 12 for 25 for 170 yards. He did not look that great after I watched some tape of him. But this Saints offense, Jameis Winston had another Jameis Winston type game. He had a touchdown. He had 2 interceptions. Alvin Kamara looks like he just does not give a shit anymore out there. And the one standout was Chris Olave. I mean, the dude's getting targeted like every single second. How many yards did he have? Like 150 yards yesterday? 147? Like, it was crazy. I mean, you cannot lose to the Carolina Panthers.
Olave is averaging 10 targets a game as a rookie in his first 3 games.
Yeah, he looks great right now.
Him and Garrett Wilson. Great. It's just that Jameis is not throwing to anybody else. Jameis is not it. Like, I'm watching these 3 games. I understand he's playing so hurt, but everything that he's doing out there is just like, it's the opposite of what Drew Brees was doing for this offense. It looks so. It's the opposite of methodical and like a good drive, and they're not doing any of these things that you need to do to control the game and win the game. Jameis Winston is out there trying to play, I don't know, some kind of hero ball for whatever reason. It's not even what we saw from him last year. It's disgusting football to watch. And as a guy who owns both Olave and Alvin Kamara in fantasy, very upset watching the Saints offense. It's very dull. It's not fun to watch. It's unpredictable, really, because like you don't know who's even going to score on that day. It's going to be Marquez Callaway was the only guy scoring a touchdown for them the other day. And Marquez Callaway and Mark Ingram, like, those are not guys that should be scoring for you in 2022. I'm sorry. And those are like, there are guys they're going to on those plays. I don't have too much to say about this Panthers-Saints game because it was a very boring game, except for that these 2 teams are both kind of shitty teams. Like, they're not going to win very many games.
Yeah, Jameis Winston literally just looks like he's backpedaling back into his career. He's just doing what he used to do in Tampa Bay, and that's not good. And I was expecting a lot more, to be honest. Vikings versus Lions. One thing I just want to say about this game, Justin Jefferson, 14 yards on 3 catches. I mean, Jeff Okudah absolutely locked this guy up. Jeff Okudah looks fantastic. This was a guy tons of people were writing off, saying should get cut. Biggest bust in NFL history. You know, those can't have shit in Detroit. You know, all that type of stuff we've heard. But I shout out to Jeff Okudah. That's all I have to say. He's 23 years old, and the dude's finally coming into his own. Dan Campbell, shout out to you. This was a tough game yesterday. They should have won, though. The Lions were up 14-0. They looked like they had complete control of this game, and they let it slip through their fingers.
Yeah, I mean, they weren't going to win this game. It was a 1 p.m. Kirk Cousins game. Kirk Cousins was going to win this game all the time, but I don't know. I like the Lions a lot. The way that they run the ball, they have so many different looks with power runs, zone runs. They pull guards all the time. They have these heavy sets where it's not even just like they're trying to run it down your throat. It's heavy sets with a little bit of nuance too, where they're pulling guys, they're pulling their tackles, they're finding these lanes, they're opening up these big holes, and I really like what I see from the Lions. It's a little bit similar to what we saw from the Eagles last year, where their pieces are starting to settle into place. The offensive line is very well built, well coached, and they know what they're doing. And I mean, DeAndre Swift and Miles Sanders are very similar backs. They're not game-breaking backs. They're not these all-time great backs. But you put them behind a good offensive line, and they could read the line fairly well. Same thing with Jamal Williams, and they just do their job. And that's what we're seeing a lot with pretty much every single player on the Vikings the Lions, is they do their job. And that's a huge testament to Dan Campbell and how he's running this organization and the guys that they have in place. Because I know Dan Campbell's not an X's and O guy, but he has the guys in place that do that for him. I don't know exactly who's on that Lions coaching staff, but I can see it from the film. The way that they're playing and the holes that they open up and the technicality that their offensive line plays with is so great. It's just there's a huge future there with the Lions as soon as they figure out that quarterback position.
Yeah, I agree. The only thing with DeAndre Swift is he shoulder sprain this
Yep.
morning. So that's going to be a tough loss for them. I don't know how long he's going to be out for, but definitely something to keep your eye out on. The last thing I wanted to say about this game was it was basically just a battle of the overpaid quarterbacks. Jared Goff and Kirk Cousins, and that's really all it was. It's very forgettable 1 p.m. type of game.
I just have one more thing to say about Jeff Okudah in particular. I was one of the on the group of people writing him off not because of the talent. I love Jeff Okudah coming into the draft, but this guy has gone through 4 major injuries in a 16-month span. To see him come back from an Achilles tear, I think it was a hamstring tear, and then 2 upper body injuries in this short of a time, and come back playing at this level, there's got to be some consideration for him in comeback player of the year talk, because he is playing shutdown corner right now. And I mean, he held Devontae Smith to 0 catches for 0 yards. We see how good Devontae Smith is. We see what he's doing right now. Not a catch on Jeff Okudah. So, yeah, I think that the mentioning of Jeff Okudah is something that needs to be done.
I mean, yeah, he looks fantastic. I mean, shout out that guy. Shout out Jeff. Another game I wanted to talk about: Chiefs versus the Colts. And this was another game that I had a bad week this week. I got wrong. I got Chiefs. I had Chiefs over Colts, but I should have known. This is Andy Reid cannot beat the Colts. He's 3-7 against the Colts all time.
Really?
It's his worst coaching record against a single team. And Patrick Mahomes, quite frankly, yesterday did not look good at all. This defense was completely shutting them down. Mahomes had 20. He threw 20 for 35 yesterday. He looked off balance, and this defense is doing this without Shaq Leonard right now, which is the most impressive part to me. And when he comes back, I think this is going to be a top 7 unit. I mean, Yannick looks pretty good right now, and Matt Ryan had a really good game yesterday. Jonathan Taylor is still struggling, though. He only averaged 3.2 yards per carry. That's something a little worry about when he's supposed to be your whole point on offense. My guy Alec Pierce out of the draft, he had 65 yards yesterday for 3 catches, though, so that made me feel good. Mike Pittman, had a good Mike Pittman type game. So Colts needed this win. Chiefs definitely didn't need this loss, but did you see that little fight? Not little fight, little disagreement. I think that's a little overdrawn. I mean, LaShawn McCoy was going crazy on Twitter about it, saying he doesn't know how to coach his players, blah blah blah. And I don't know. I think it was a little overdrawn. If Patrick Mahomes didn't like this guy that much, he would have been out of there a while ago.
There's a reason Bieniemy doesn't have a coaching job, though.
Yeah, I mean a head coaching job, but offensive coordinator. I feel like if Patrick Mahomes did not like this guy, I mean, if you're just reading through these comments, it's like he should not be on this coaching staff. Blah blah blah. He's trying to get his quarterback hurt. All of these little things. I'm just like, you really think he's trying to get his quarterback hurt right now? Come on. It's just he has some dumb play calls, but the good, every good team fights every now and then. I wouldn't even consider that a fight. That was more of a disagreement. Andy Reid literally came over and pushed his chest, pushed Pat Mahomes' chest. Was like, it's all right. No, it's all right. We'll be okay. And it's all settled now. That's how I look at it. They'll be fine. Chiefs are still the Chiefs, and at the end of the day, that's it.
Shady McCoy has had it out for Eric Bieniemy for a long time. I mean, we've seen these kind of comments from Shady McCoy for a while. It's probably because he just didn't get the
play.
Ball. Yeah, when he was on the Chiefs, he wasn't getting the ball. So I'm sure he's got some pent-up aggression about that. But I don't think Bieniemy's a bad play caller. He's got his faults. Every single one of his interviews has gone sideways. There's not it's not a nothing there. I'm sure there are some issues with Bieniemy, and he's not this perfect coach, but he's got his role in the NFL. And it's an offensive coordinator, and for the Chiefs, he's not losing his job over that. But I don't know that I necessarily agree with the fact that the Colts defense was that stout, or they did not do all that much. It was just so many special teams errors on the Chiefs. It looked like the Packers last year. The punt team was a joke. They were allowing some pretty big returns. I think they missed a field goal, if I'm not wrong. Their special teams just look like a joke. I feel like this was a game that was very fraudulent. The Chiefs probably should have won this game by about 20 points. There was just so many small things that are so easily correctable that went the Colts' way that I'm not worried about it, and it really doesn't move me much with the 1-1-1 Colts, who have lost to the Jaguars and tied with the Texans. Not that impressed by the Colts right now, especially with the way Matt Ryan played. Did you see that hit he took on 4th down? where he just got
They did.
absolutely murdered. I was watching that and I just started cracking up. Like I've never seen a quarterback get hit like that. Like the dude is just a complete statue in the pocket. He did not even attempt to move. He just looked like he got shot, like literally shot from the rafters. And I don't know. The Colts, good win for them, I guess, but nothing to really take away from that game, in my opinion. Chiefs are a much better team. They just did not play up to their standards, and they're going to play up to their standards in the next few weeks.
Well, the Chiefs own. I mean, not Chiefs. The Colts own Andy Reid, so I mean that definitely helped their
Andy Reid is
mojo.
overrated. He just sucks. He doesn't suck, but he's not. He's not the coach that some people like to think he is. He's been in the NFL for 2 decades. He's got 1 ring, and he's had 3 all-time great quarterbacks. 3 of them, 1 ring to show for him. Just saying.
3 all time.
Yeah, you want to throw McNabb in there?
Well, who's your 3 all time that Andy Reid's had?
McNabb, Vic, and Mahomes.
I wouldn't call McNabb an on that all time QB, but
McNabb
Vic.
at that point was considered an all-time QB. The only reason McNabb is not considered an all-time QB anymore is because he never won. He never got the ring. And honestly, that's partially his fault for throwing up at halftime and choking that game away. But Andy Reid also choked that game away. And let's not forget, they made the NFC Championship 3 separate times and did not win with that team. This was a dream team that Andy Reid assembled. Like, that was what it was being called. This was a super team before super teams were even a thing in sports. And Andy Reid just blew it. The only thing is, media now is bigger than media was back then. And, I mean, it wasn't even that long ago. But Andy Reid, he's an old dude. Early 2000s, the media was not that big on it. You don't see that much about it anymore. There's a whole generation of football fans that don't know Andy Reid was even the coach of the Eagles. They have no idea.
Well, if you don't know that, that's just crazy if you're an Eagles fan. But the one thing I got to say this, I think Andy Reid, it wasn't more like he blew his chances with quarterbacks. It's just he blew his chances with, as you said, perfect teams. Like he said, multiple great teams out there with a very good quarterback. Because I mean, yes, he had Michael Vick on his comeback player of the year journey where he looked fantastic. But I don't know, there was some holes with that team. I mean, I personally know that as an Eagles fan, like some of that defense was not good. But as the biggest thing that I would put against Andy Reid was not winning a championship in that Donovan McNabb era. I totally agree with you. I mean, he had pieces on the defensive end. He had the top 5 running back in football back then, and Brian Westbrook too. So he just didn't know how to put it together. I mean, the GM got him Terrell Owens, and I don't know. But I agree with you on that. I would just say it's even a bigger push, I think, against him. You know, you have a perfect team around you, and you can't do anything. You get there, but you can't win it. So I don't know. I do agree with you that Andy Reid is overrated. I don't think he's a top 5 head coach of all time, but you can fight me on Twitter on that. I don't really care. The other game that I wanted to talk about actually was and a lot of people probably won't be talking about this game though. Bears versus the Texans. Bears won this game, but Justin Fields looked literally horrible this game. I mean, the Bears fans I've seen are starting to actually worry about him. They're like, "Oh, is this guy? Can this guy be good? Did we blow another first round pick on this guy?" What are your opinions on this? I mean, the dude had 106 yards and 2 interceptions yesterday against the Texans defense. And actually, I'm going to say one more thing before I let you go. Texans rookie had 2 interceptions yesterday. Had both of them. So shout out to him. But go ahead.
Was it Petrie?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love Petrie. Petrie's great. I didn't get much of a chance to watch this game. I kind of had to stat sheet this game, and for good reason. It's a Houston-Chicago game. But, I mean, it doesn't really matter how good Fields is when you've got Walter Payton Jr. out there and Khalil Herbert with, what was it, 20 carries, 150 yards, and 2 touchdowns?
Yeah, dude looked like
win the game
insane.
With that. Yeah. But I think a lot of people will give Justin Fields the excuse of the fact that he's on a bad team. Like, the offensive line is bad. He doesn't have great receivers. There's not much to work with on this team. And you get, like, yeah, there's logic to that. That's not wrong. You're not wrong in saying that this team is a bad team, but you can look good under bad circumstances. And Justin Fields has not looked good under these circumstances. Like, he is not showing any progression in the pocket, like as far as reading the field and reading receivers. And it's all just one read and throw. And if it's not there, he's scrambling, taking off, or throwing a completely horrible throw. Like, he'll just chuck the ball up if his first read's not there. And that was what we were really worried about with him coming out of college. He was a one-read quarterback in college, and he kind of needed to go to an offense that taught him this kind of stuff. So I think that it's kind of a 50-50 thing. It's partially on Fields not being that great, but the truth is that the tools are all there with Fields. He's got an all-time great arm. He's one of these scrambling quarterbacks. He is like a juiced up Jalen Hurts coming out of college.
I
Like
was just gonna say
when
that.
if you were to put this guy into a good situation, I do think that you'd see good results. But there's also a little bit on him. Like, yeah, learn on your own, develop on your own, or else you're going to end up like Mitch Trubisky. And 2 years down the line, you're going to find another team that's maybe a better situation, but you're not going to be ready to play, and you're not going to have that same leash that you have on your 4-year rookie deal. Like the Steelers aren't giving Mitch Trubisky that much time to prove himself. If Mitch Trubisky doesn't prove himself in the next few games, I guarantee you Kenny Pickett's going to step in. And I feel like that's the kind of stuff that could happen with Justin Fields if he doesn't start to prove it now with the Bears.
Yeah, Justin Fields is a guy who should have went to a team that already had a quarterback and was planning on letting Fields sit for a year or two. I mean, he definitely just does not look ready yet. As you said, he reminds me a lot of Jalen Hurts. But the difference between these two guys, for at least right now, is, I mean, in my head, the mentality. I mean, you watch both of their press conferences back to back, and Jalen Hurts, after the Vikings game, after last night's game or yesterday's game, he says the same things every time. It might be a little cheesy or repetitive, but he's always like, we still got to work. We still got to get better at certain things. And then there's the Justin Fields interview a couple of weeks ago after they lost to the Packers, and they were talking about Bears fans. Don't you got to feel a little bad for them? And he's just like, it's harder for us. It's harder for us. Like he didn't really give any what you're supposed to say. Even if you feel that way, I feel like you should always say something. That's not your on your field performance, obviously, but it all works together as your quarterback. Justin Fields yesterday, I was just watching this tape, and this was a game I was expecting him to go out there and say, I'm a good quarterback. I can beat this Texans defense. And no, it was, as you said, it was Herbert turning into Walter Payton for the game and absolutely dominating on his own. So I'd be a little worried personally if I was a Bears fan, especially if I gave up a first-round pick for this guy. But this was the Giants trade. Two first-round picks for that. So, I mean, if this is not the guy again, like, you're starting over again. And yes, you'll have $100 million in cap space, but you still don't have the most important puzzle piece. So that's definitely something you got to worry about if you're Chicago. But I just want to give a little shout out to that defense, though. I think this defensive unit can be fantastic in the next 2 years. I mean, Raekwon Smith yesterday had like one of the best games in this season. I mean, he was all over the field. He had an interception. And this was a guy saying he wanted out of Chicago, and he's playing like he's the best player on their defense. I mean, he was before, but I just really think if this defense pulls together, they bring some pieces into the draft and via free agency, I think they'll be a top 5 unit in the next 2 years, honestly.
Yeah, but like how many times have we seen this with the Chicago Bears? Be a great defense, but don't have the head coach and don't have the quarterback. Like the most important part of a football team is developing a quarterback, and there's so many different ways you can do it. Like we've seen so many quarterbacks developed in so many different ways. You see the Aaron Rodgers mold where they sit a few years. I mean, hell, you even see the Tom Brady mold every once in a while where they come in out of nowhere and they're like you draft them late and they're great. But you just gotta find a quarterback. Do whatever you can to develop a quarterback. But for whatever reason, the way the Chicago Bears work is they're trying to just they want to grab a guy and just throw him in, plug him in, and have him be great. It feels like they just drafted Justin Fields and they're like, all right, yeah, we got our franchise quarterback. We're done. We did it. No, there's so much you have to do to develop that guy, especially a guy like Justin Fields, who's such a raw talent. You got to get him an offensive line. You got to get him an offensive-minded coordinator and an offensive-minded head coach. Got to get him weapons. You don't like Darnell Mooney and Cole Kmet are not the way you want to support your franchise quarterback. Look at the Eagles. They had, I know we'll go back to the Eagles a million times, but that's because Howie Roseman developed a quarterback and did it well. And that's like the subject of the episode. You went out, you get them the receivers that they need. Got Devontae Smith, got A.J. Brown, got Dallas Goedert, and built up that offensive line. That's how you develop a quarterback. That's a guy that's a rushing quarterback. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think that the Bears are doing a good job developing him at all, or because I feel like I'm going on a tangent on how many different ways you can develop a quarterback, and they're just doing nothing.
I personally liked what the Bears did the head coaching hire. I like him. I think he's going to be a pretty good head coach. I just think they needed to bring more offensive minds around him to help Justin Fields. If you want to be a defensive minded team, that's totally okay. I think, that's how you win championships at the end of the day. But now, especially where the league's trending, where it's a lot more offensive than defensive, it would help to have a really good offensive coordinator on this team. I think that's what they have to do this offseason. I think, I don't know who their quarterback coach is, but obviously it's not been fucking working the past literally ever for the Chicago Bears. So they have to fix that. There's things I feel like they have to fix inside the organization. It's not really like all head coach, because I think this was, as I said, I think it was a good hire. I mean, their defense looks good. And if you want your main thing to be your defense, that's great, but your offense can't be complete shit, and Justin Fields can't be complete shit. Your quarterback has to be good, obviously, but this is my last thing I'm going to say about the Bears. If Justin Fields keeps this up, if he doesn't show any development over this year, you're going to have the Bears. I mean, yeah, I know they're 2-1 right now, but I still don't see them being good. Obviously, I still think they're going to finish bottom 5 in the league.
Yeah.
What do you do? I mean, this is a great quarterback class. Do you draft a QB?
As this year goes on a little bit more, I'm starting to wonder how great of a quarterback class this really is. CJ Stroud does not move me. He has not shown me anything. Throw 5 touchdowns against Stockton University. I don't care. It's not impressive to me. So that's what we're seeing. All these Oklahoma quarterbacks put up these whole numbers. So I don't know that this is a great quarterback class, but kind of backtracking to the Bears a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know what they do with this, because you look at the Bears' history, and they have never had a quarterback. Not once have the Bears had an actual quarterback that you can say is a franchise guy. And you went all in on Justin Fields. You gave 3 first-round picks to move up, a total of 3 first-round picks to move up and grab this guy to make him your franchise quarterback. And the reason it's so confusing to me is they did all that to get him, and then they just stopped there. They didn't do the other stuff that you need to do to develop this guy. It's like they got the franchise quarterback, and then they act like he's not even there. They act like he's a bridge guy for the next guy, because they're trying to save salary cap right now and try and prepare for the future. No, you've got the guy right now. You've got him on a rookie deal. Now is the time to strike. Now is the time to develop this guy. And they're just doing none of it, which is why I don't understand the whole process behind the Chicago Bears. And yeah, you can say the defense looks good. They played a rain game, a monsoon game where they looked good, and they played a game against the Texans, who are the worst offense in football. So yeah, the Bears defense is going to look okay, but I don't think that it's that great of a defense. I don't think Eberflus is that great of a defensive coach. So I think we're going to see an average defense and a very bad offense, where what is the whole point of this season? They're going to lose probably 11, 12 games, and nothing good is going to come of it. At least when these other teams like the Jaguars were losing games last season with Urban Meyer, at least Trevor Lawrence was developing. At least you had all these guys with some weapons around them, and you're trying to develop these guys. With Justin Fields, it feels like they're just throwing him out there and waiting for their next guy.
I'm going to be honest, too. I think Trevor Lawrence is a lot better of a quarterback than Justin Fields, though. And Trevor Lawrence had probably the worst situation in all of football last year. I mean, he had the Urban Meyer situation. He didn't really have a lot of weapons either. So I think that comes down to quarterback play. I don't think Justin Fields can be as good as Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence looked fantastic yesterday with a new head coaching scheme. He didn't really have any weapons. They brought him in new weapons this year, and he starting to look good. I mean, I do agree with you. If you're going to have your franchise guy, you're supposed to put things around them, pieces around them, but everyone was calling the Jacksonville Jaguars the worst organization in football this time last year. So you can change these certain things in an off season. The Bears, something needs to happen for them to actually do it, but there's definitely a route to do it.
Well, that's the whole point, though. Something has to happen. The Bears aren't doing anything. You've got Trevor Lawrence is in the building for the Jags, so now they're making things happen. Justin Fields is in the building for the Bears. They're not doing anything. They're just letting him sit there. Their wide receiver room is Cole Kmet, Darnell Mooney, and Equanimeous St. Brown, and I couldn't tell you who the third wide receiver on that team is. You got Khalil Herbert starting at running back for you. I don't care how great of a game Khalil Herbert puts up. Those are not enough offensive weapons for a young quarterback to succeed, and that's not even bringing up this horrendous offensive line. They are not doing anything to help this guy develop. We'll go back to Trevor Lawrence again. Trevor Lawrence, he was in a terrible situation, but they spent the offseason and they flipped the situation around. They brought in a head coach who's worked with young quarterbacks before. They brought in offensive mind coaches. They brought in some talent at wide receiver with Christian Kirk. They went and overpaid this guy for the sole purpose of developing their quarterback. Chicago is doing the exact opposite of that. And yeah, you don't think that Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields can be the same player now, but that's because we're watching them. We're a year and a half into their career so far. Like, yeah, we've got NFL tape to evaluate them, but as they were coming out, these two guys were neck and neck. I mean, once Justin Fields beat Trevor Lawrence in that big game, he threw for 6 touchdowns and he had that great game. There were people saying he was going to go number 1 overall over Trevor Lawrence. Like, these are two players that when they were coming in were very similarly rated, and they've got very similar tools as a quarterback. And in the NFL, it's all about tools and developing your tools. They haven't done it.
I think the Bears are just a year behind the Jaguars. I think the Jaguars did exactly what they needed to do last offseason. I think the Bears can do that this offseason. The Jaguars
want
had
to be
over
a year behind the Jaguars?
The Jaguars are looking pretty damn good right now, though.
They're 2-1. We'll see. We're 3 weeks into the season.
And they killed the Chargers yesterday.
And I don't know that they're anywhere. I think that's not even a fair comparison to the Jags. The Jags, they're coming off. They have 2 elite edge rushers in Trayvon Walker and Josh Allen. They've got a fairly decent secondary with a lot of high talented picks. They've got good receivers, and they actually have some pieces on their offensive line. Like the Jaguars, the only issue with the Jaguars was the fact that they employed Urban Meyer as their head coach last season. Like, they had pieces there at least. There was things to like with the Jaguars. There's just nothing to like outside of Justin Fields with the Bears, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, yeah, but if you're talking Trayvon Walker, they got him last offseason. Zay Jones and Marvin Jones, and not Marvin Jones, Zay Jones and Christian Kirk. They both got them this offseason. They're 2 of their top guys on offense this year. James Robinson's finally back in the offensive scheme because, Urban Meyer's not there hating on him. So there's a lot of different things that changed from this season from last season. That's my big thing. It could take a couple little moves to really bolster your roster. And that's literally what the Bears GM came out and basically said, we're giving all these big pieces away now. So we're going to have all this money to spend and we're going to have these draft picks to build around. And he's a new GM. So that's what that's my whole thing with this. He has a plan. He understood that this year they were going to be shit. And that was his plan. He knows that next offseason he's going to have $100 million to go out and spend. And that's literally what the Jaguars did. And you're talking about overpaying Christian Kirk. I can literally see the Bears doing that I don't know who's really on the market next offseason, but I can see the Bears doing the exact same thing because they're going to know we have this money to spend. We still have Justin Fields maybe for 2 more years if he's this guy. I can 100% see them doing what the Jaguars did this offseason.
They have way more holes to fill than the Jaguars did. Like,
that's why you have $100 million, though.
Yeah, but talk about franchise. I mean, the Jaguars had $100 million. If you're looking at franchise cornerstones on this Bears piece, who are players, if you want to have a successful franchise, who on this roster right now will be on that roster? Maybe Justin Fields, if you can develop him, but as this whole segment's been about the fact that they're not. So I don't know if I can even throw Justin Fields in there. Roquan Smith is one. Maybe Eddie Jackson.
I like their safety duo.
Maybe Eddie Jackson, but we haven't seen Eddie Jackson play at a high level since 2018. So we might be seeing that again, but I don't know. Well, we're going to have that full season, and even then, he's getting a little bit old. And then you've got the rookie safety that they brought in Brisker, who I do like. So, yeah, you got 3 pieces on this whole team that you're willing to bring onto a successful franchise. There's so much that you have to develop and completely overhaul with this roster that I'm not willing to say they're going in the right direction. Like, this Bears team is just it's a mess right now, and you're just shortening your time frame if you're not making any moves now, because your time frame is when your quarterback's on a rookie deal. Otherwise, you have to restart. And every year that you go by with Justin Fields not supported and not having a better cast around him, you're just going to waste a year of development with the guy, and that's not how I would like to see a franchise be run. So I'm not going to do much betting on the Bears. So I'll say that here. But I think that's a fair amount to talk about the Bears. We do have to get out of here in about 10 minutes.
I agree. My last point on the Bears would be I agree with what he did because he was not trying to be in the middle of the pack still. If they kept the same roster, they would be in the middle of the pack still. That's my final point on that. They knew they weren't winning a Super Bowl. They tore it down, hoping for the best, and I literally
They're
cannot
2
blame
and
the
1
GM
right
for
now.
that.
And if they finish with 6, 7 wins, they will be in the middle of the pack. They will not be picking number 1 overall. They will not be picking anywhere. If they finish with those 6 or 7 wins that they're on pace for right now, they'll finish in the middle of the pack, which is exactly where they did not want to be.
And they got assets for what they traded away, though. That's what I thought. That's what I like. And
We'll
you know
see.
what? They beat the Texans and they beat the 49ers in a monsoon. So I mean, that's really it. They beat probably the third another bottom feeder, and the first win does not count for me.
Time will
That's
tell with
my
the
opinion.
Rams, but once Justin Fields is a backup for the Cardinals, then we'll understand exactly how the Bears failed it. But I want to move on to I guess the Sunday night football game, the Niners Broncos, and the absolute joke that game was. I
And that
mean,
game sucked.
did you watch the game?
It
Jimmy
was
Garoppolo, what is he doing on an NFL field? And the fact that fans were like excited to see him, that safety, like I
it was
don't.
bad.
How much do I gotta? How many times do I have to say that Jimmy Garoppolo is not an NFL quarterback and should not be starting for an NFL team? And it's just so funny to me that the Niners fans were like, "We got better. We just lost our number 3 overall pick, like future superstar quarterback. We got better." No,
My biggest takeaway from this whole game was Russell Wilson. I mean, yeah, he had that one good drive at the end of the game, but this is a dude getting paid top 5 quarterback money for the next 6 years, and he couldn't do shit the entire game. I mean, yeah, I know he's playing against the 49ers defense, but their first 4 drives were 3-and-outs. Yeah, I know that has to do something with Nathaniel Hackett. I think Nathaniel Hackett again was the worst head coach hire. I mean, he literally looks like has no idea what he's doing. He's red in the face every other damn second out there, but they look like a complete mess right now. I mean, they're giving Melvin Gordon the ball on the goal line instead of Javonte Williams. Yeah, Melvin Gordon had the touchdown yesterday, but there are just so many things I do not like about this Denver Broncos team. San Francisco's defenses, but they're both the defenses played fantastic yesterday, but one defense was playing against supposedly a really good offense, and the other team was playing against Jimmy Garoppolo. So that's why I don't really give the Broncos as much credit as I would give the 49ers.
yeah, I mean, I think you're right in saying that the Broncos are the team to take away something from in this game. I think that they are not anywhere near where they wanted to be. They just paid Russell Wilson $50 million a year. He's not that guy. He's just not anymore. His skill was something that just doesn't age well. A guy that doesn't see over the line and doesn't like. He needs to rely on his legs and his athleticism to make these big time plays, and it's either a big time play down the sideline or it's nothing. That does not age well for a shorter guy who stands at about like 5'11", 6 foot. Like that, to trust that guy to develop late into his career is a very risky move, and it's not paying off right now. And I mean, talk about supporting a quarterback. The Broncos have the ultimate supporting cast for a quarterback, and it's not working right now. So it's either there's only 2 things that can change with this Broncos team right now. It's a change in play calling, which would mean either a change in philosophy from the coaching staff or an overhaul of the coaching staff, which would have to be this offseason, which is something they already just did, or Russell Wilson has to completely turn around and play better. And I don't see how that happens because, honestly, I don't think Russell Wilson, it's not that he's injured. It's not that he's missing big plays. It's not that he's like not reading the field as well as he used to. It's that he doesn't have the athleticism that he used to. That's not something that comes back with time. That's not something that you can work on and just like regain. They're going to have to completely change the way that they work this offense because they're not getting the Russell Wilson they traded 3 first-round picks and 2 players for. And that is a very scary thing for a team that's got Super Bowl aspirations in the hardest division in football.
This team is not making the playoffs, as I said in the beginning of the year. I mean, he's 34 this year, Russell Wilson, and they locked him up for 5 more years, or 6 more years, including this year. That is the worst contract in football. It's hands down the worst contract in football, in my eyes. Is it fully guaranteed? I don't really know that, to be honest, but it's definitely pretty close. You can't be paying a guy like this that anymore. I mean, in my eyes, they're doing the classic paying for what has done. They're not paying for what they're thinking he can do, which is what you have to do, especially in the NFL, especially at the quarterback position. I don't know. I think the Broncos are going to be one of those teams where they're just stuck. they're just going to be stuck and they're not going to want to admit it. Their fans aren't going to want to admit it. I don't know. Maybe they will because literally last night the fans looked like they were going to have heart attacks in the stands. They were like, "What the fuck is this offense doing?" Defense looks good. Their defense always looked pretty damn good, but again, ever since Peyton Manning left, it's been that offense. And as you said, what Russell Wilson does great does not age like fine wine. So you got to be a little scared if you're a Broncos fan right now.
Melvin Gordon can't be getting 13 carries in a game. In this game, especially. Like Melvin Gordon, you have Javonte Williams. Give him the ball. Give Javonte. And I don't even have him in fantasy this year. Like I was saying this last year because I had him in fantasy. No, he is the best offensive player on your team, the best talent on your team. If Russell Wilson is not working like Russell Wilson is supposed to be working, give the ball to Javonte Williams. And they're not even doing that. Nathaniel Hackett, he shouldn't be a head coach. The guy is sitting in his conferences quoting Austin Powers. Like nobody really liked it. Blake Bortles even called this guy like a clown after he left. Like Blake Bortles doesn't like this guy. He was like the person that Nathaniel Hackett was with the Packers was he had a closet. I don't know if you heard this story. Hackett had a closet with the Packers, and whenever they didn't like what LaFleur was saying, the players would go and they'd go to Hackett's little closet. They'd knock on the door and they'd start complaining to him, and he'd just listen to them. He was like a venting guy. Like that is not the guy I want as head coach.
He was like Toby from The Office.
Exactly. They hired
Toby from The Office. The Denver Broncos hired Toby from The Office. Literally, that's what they did, and you can't win a Super Bowl like that. I'm hiring Stanley before I hire him.
Stanley as a head coach. I think we're gonna go one more game before we get out of here. I'm gonna go Bucks Packers.
Yeah, my one thing about this game, this was the most forgettable match between two all-time greats, two top 5 quarterbacks ever. I mean, and that's another thing we talked about last week. This was going to be a very defensive game between two of the best quarterbacks of all time, and that's exactly what it was. I mean, Aaron Rodgers had 2 first-half touchdowns, and Brady had 1 touchdown. I think they both had a clean game, but it's just a very defensive-minded type of game. Leonard Fournette fucking sucks though right now. Like it is awful. I feel bad for all his fantasy owners out there. And this was after Fournette went on Twitter and was like, "Don't you guys worry. Like these touchdowns are coming pretty soon. Damn right." Like I don't think so. I think he had 40 yards yesterday. It's pretty damn bad.
Yeah, Fournette's not actually a good running back. His fantasy value and his fantasy value last season is just based off the volume and being on a good offense. But Leonard Fournette, make no mistake, he is not a good running back anymore. He's just not. I think that Rachaad White, their backup running back, has a very big chance to win that role eventually if the Buccaneers can ever figure out that Leonard Fournette is not that good. Because everybody else that watches can pretty easily figure out Leonard Fournette, he doesn't have that burst. He's not making people miss. He's not the guy that was drafted number 4 overall by the Jags. So why keep giving him the ball when you have a guy like Rachaad White who's much better? He's much better after the catch because he's a receiving back out of the backfield too, which is something Tom Brady really likes. He had good college tape. He was a 2nd-round pick. I think that we'll start seeing Rachaad White a little bit earlier in the season than some people expected. So, yeah, I think you're right, though. Very boring game. Aaron Rodgers looked good, but it was a 14-12 game at the end of the day. So, yeah, not something that you really – not too many takeaways, but I guess this is Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady against each other with very weak supporting casts. You can just pretty much conclude Aaron Rodgers is the better quarterback now because he won this game. Simple as that.
Exactly. Tom Brady's not the GOAT anymore. That's just how it works.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple.
I mean, Tom Brady, if you just watch this dude now, he does not look the same. Like, Gisele's really getting to his heart. I'm not even talking about on the field. I mean, have you seen, like, his conferences, his press game conferences, like, when he's just walking into the stadium? The dude does not look happy at all. I mean, yeah, he posts those cool videos on Instagram after a win or after a loss. He's like, we got to be better, blah, blah, blah. But I don't know. I think the mental game's hurting him a little bit too right now, which is probably
very sad way for Tom Brady to go out if this is how it would.
It would affect. That's the thing, man. I just wish he retired. Not like because I'm not a Tom Brady hater.
I feel like he was very upset in the way that it happened last season, just losing to the Rams like that, and he almost came back in that game. Like he was so close to actually making that comeback. And it was just too late, and he didn't want to go out on that note. And it felt like people were forcing him to retire, kind of. And I feel bad for Brady because the only way that it gets better was if they were to win a ring this year. It doesn't look that way right now. I mean, I know they're so hurt, but that's kind of like the whole thing. The healthiest team wins, and they're not healthy right now. And a
And how
quarterback
much are
that's
you
45 is not something I want to bet on staying healthy. I don't care about no TB12 method. He's 45.
and how much are you gonna rely on the Chris Godwin rumor that he's coming back healthy every single week? I mean, I love Chris Godwin, but he can't stay healthy. I mean, Mike Evans took that suspension like a man, though. He did what he had to do. He stuck up for Tom Brady. If I was in Mike Evans' shoes, I would have done the same thing. But you also got to think about it from, I don't know. It was stupid though. I mean, yes. Do you want someone in your quarterback's face like that? No, but I don't know. No, coming from that point, Chris Godwin's out. Julio Jones is out right now. Who was their number one yesterday? Russell Gage.
Yeah, they had Gage, Cole Beasley, and Rashad Perriman out there.
Like that's just not that can't work. That's not working for. That's not what Tom Brady came back for. At the end of the day, he came back for a loaded wide receiver
Came
corps
back
that
with
he
Mike
was
Evans,
tired.
Julio Jones, and Chris Godwin.
Exactly, and shout out to Gronk. He did what he's doing. He said, I'm retiring and that's it. And I don't believe any of I mean, there was always those little rumors, from his girlfriend even saying, Gronk will be back. Gronk will be back. I don't think Gronk's back. If
It
you
would
see him
take
on
them being extremely good for Gronk to come back.
it would take, in my eyes, it would take them literally being like, I don't really know when's the last time you can sign someone in there right before the playoffs.
Yeah.
They did that with Eric Weddle last year.
Yeah.
I could literally see that happening if they win like 14 games.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they have to be like, you are getting to the Super Bowl no matter what. And if you follow Gronk on like social media or social media, the dude is just having a great time. I don't see any way he comes back, and I can't blame him. In my eyes, the dude's the best tight end of all time, no doubt, especially during his prime. And why come back? What does he have now? 4 rings or 3 rings?
I think it's 3.
That's poor guy. Keep your 3 Super Bowl rings. I love Gronk though. He made the right decision.
All right.
But I think that's it. Ending on the Tom Brady and Gronk note. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in this week. We'll see you next week. And sorry. Make sure to follow us on social media at CCSN Sports, and we'll see you next week, guys. Thank you so much.